Good evening, grizzly bears, or good morning, good afternoon, good night, whatever time it is for you. We're going to be continuing the reading of the complete works of Henry Wadsworth Longfellow today. It is, I should say, National Poetry Month in the U.S. So, I don't really care about that, but I guess here I am, reading poems. I figured I should point out that it is National Poetry Month. So, in the last stream, I skipped over some things in the complete works of Longfellow. Some very long, epic poems, because they were just too long to read in that stream. And I looked into them after the stream, and I concluded that I was very right to skip those, and I won't be coming back to them, because they are epic poems that portray historic events, but they portray them colored by Longfellow's particular political philosophy and cultural identity. And this is one of the complaints that I have about Longfellow. He writes a lot of poems about historical figures and historical events, and he lets his own political and cultural identity color the way he presents those things. And as a general tip from Papa Bear, I love poetry, but you should not get your facts about history or the way things are from poetry. Poetry is not a medium for communicating facts. It's a medium for communicating feelings, images, occasionally ideas, but not facts. And in much of Longfellow's poems, even the ones that aren't about history, his own religion is really front and center. And it is for sure my least favorite aspect of Longfellow. So let me just say, the fact that I'm reading Longfellow's poems, don't take that as an endorsement from Papa Bear for Longfellow's particular philosophy and religion and political beliefs. That said, even though I disagree with him, his poems are still very much worth reading, at least the ones that aren't trying to be historical. So another note from the last stream. My phone rang during one of the readings, and I had to remove that reading from the VOD because of that. So our first order of business, I guess our second order of business after my little lecture on Longfellow, will be to reread that poem so that I have it in the VOD series, which I'm posting on YouTube. That poem was called The Old Clock on the Stairs. So just give me a moment to have some water and clear my throat, and that's where we'll start. Somewhat back from the village street stands the old-fashioned country seat. Across its antique portico, tall poplar trees their shadows throw. And from its station in the hall, an ancient timepiece says to all, forever, never, never, forever. Halfway up the stairs it stands and points and beckons with its hands from its case of massive oak, like a monk who, under his cloak, crosses himself and sighs, alas, with sorrowful voice to all who pass, forever, never, never, forever. By day its voice is low and light, but in the silent dead of night, distinct as a passing footstep's fall, it echoes along the vacant hall, along the ceiling, along the floor, and seems to say at each chamber door, forever, never, never, forever. Through days of sorrow and of mirth, through days of death and days of birth, through every swift vicissitude of changeful time, unchanged it has stood, and as if like God it all things saw, it calmly repeats those words of awe, forever, never, never, forever. In that mansion used to be free-hearted hospitality. His great fires up the chimney roared. The stranger feasted at his board. But, like the skeleton at the feast, that warning timepiece never ceased. Forever, never, never, forever. There, groups of merry children played. There youths and maidens dreaming strayed. O precious hours, O golden prime, and affluence of love and time. Even as a miser counts his gold, those hours the ancient timepiece told. Forever, never, never, forever. From that chamber, clothed in white, the bride came forth on her wedding night. There, in that silent room below, the dead lay in his shroud of snow. And in the hush that followed the prayer was heard the old clock on the stair. Forever, never, never, forever. All are scattered now and fled. Some are married, some are dead. And when I ask, with throbs of pain, oh, when shall they all meet again? and in the days long since gone by, the ancient timepiece makes reply. Forever, never, never, forever. Never here, forever there, where all parting pain and care and death and time shall disappear. Forever there, but never here. The horologe of eternity saith this incessantly. Forever, never, never, forever. That was The Old Clock on the Stairs by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Next up, we have The Ladder of St. Augustine. St. Augustine, well hast thou said, that of our vices we can frame a ladder, if we will but tread beneath our feet each deed of shame. All common things, each day's events, that with the hour begin and end, our pleasures and our discontents, are rounds by which we may ascend. The low desire, the base design that makes another's virtues less, the revel of the ruddy wine, and all occasions of excess. The longing for ignoble things, the strife for triumph more than truth, the hardening of the heart that brings irreverence for the dreams of youth. All thoughts of ill, all evil deeds that have their root in thoughts of ill, whatever hinders or impedes the action of the nobler will, all these must first be trampled down beneath our feet if we would gain in the bright fields of fair renown the right of eminent domain. We have not wings, we cannot soar, but we have feet to scale and climb, by slow degrees, by more and more, the cloudy summits of our time. The mighty pyramids of stone that wedge-like cleave the desert airs, when nearer seen and better known, are but gigantic flights of stairs. The distant mountains that uprear their solid bastions to the skies are crossed by pathways that appear as we to higher levels rise. The heights by great men reached and kept were not attained by sudden flight, but they, while their companions slept, were toiling upward in the night. Standing on what too long we bore, with shoulders bent and downcast eyes, we may discern, unseen before, a path to higher destinies. Nor deem the irrevocable past as wholly wasted, wholly vain, if, rising on its wrecks at last, to something nobler we attain. That was The Ladder of St. Augustine. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Next up we have another long one, medium long, called The Phantom Ship. In Mather's Magnalia Christi of the old colonial time may be found in prose the legend that is here set down in rhyme. A ship sailed from New Haven, and the keen and frosty airs that filled her sails at parting were heavy with good men's prayers. O Lord, if it be thy pleasure, thus prayed the old divine, to bury our friends in the ocean. Take them, for they are thine. But Master Lamberton muttered, and under his breath said he, this ship is so crank and walty, I fear our grave she will be. And the ships that came from England, when the winter months were gone, brought no tidings of this vessel, nor of Master Lamberton. This put the people to praying that the Lord would let them hear what in his greater wisdom he had done with friends so dear. And at last their prayers were answered. It was in the month of June, an hour before the sunset of a windy afternoon, when, steadily steering landward, a ship was seen below, and they knew it was Lamberton, master, who sailed so long ago. On she came with a cloud of canvas, right against the wind that blew, until the eye could distinguish the faces of the crew. Then fell her straining topmasts, hanging tangled in the shrouds, and her sails were loosened and lifted, and blown away like clouds. And the masts, with all their rigging, fell slowly one by one, and the hulk dilated and vanished as a sea mist in the sun. And the people who saw this marvel, each said unto his friend, that this was the mold of their vessel, and thus her tragic end. And the pastor of the village gave thanks to God in prayer, that to quiet their troubled spirits, he had sent this ship of air. That was kind of a fun one. My model does interesting things when I drink water and clear my throat. My throat is resisting being cleared today. We'll see how long it holds up. The next poem is called The Warden of the Cinque Ports. A mist was driving down the British Channel. The day was just begun. And through the window panes on floor and panel streamed the red autumn sun. glanced on flowing flag and rippling pennon, the white sails of ships, and from the frowning rampart the black cannon hailed it with feverish lips. Sandwich and Romney, Hastings, Hythe, and Dover were all alert that day to see the French war steamers speeding over when the fog cleared away. Sullen and silent and like couchant lions, their cannon through the night, holding their breath, had watched in grim defiance the sea coast opposite. And now they roared at drumbeat from their stations, on every citadel, each answering each with morning salutations, that all was well. And down the coast, all taking up the burden, replied the distant forts, as if to summon from his sleep the warden and lord of the Cinque Ports. Him shall no sunshine from the fields of azure, no drumbeat from the wall, no morning gun from the black fort's embrasure awaken with its call. No more, surveying with an eye impartial the long line of the coast, shall the gaunt figure of the old field marshal be seen upon his post. For in the night, unseen, a single warrior, in somber harness mailed, dreaded of man and surnamed the Destroyer, the rampart wall has scaled. He passed into the chamber of the sleeper, the dark and silent room, and as he entered, darker grew and deeper the silence and the gloom. He did not pause to parley or dissemble, but smote the warden hoar. Ah, what a blow that made all England tremble and groan from shore to shore. Meanwhile, without, the surly cannon waited. The sun rose bright o'erhead. Nothing in nature's aspect intimated that a great man was dead. Hello, Cookie. Welcome back. How are you doing today? We're celebrating National Poetry Month today, and all weekend. I'm quite excited. Next up, a poem called Haunted Houses. All houses wherein men have lived and died are haunted houses. Through the open doors, the harmless phantoms on their errands glide, with feet that make no sound upon the floors. We meet them at the doorway, on the stair. Along the passages they come and go, impalpable impressions on the air, a sense of something moving to and fro. There are more guests at the table than the hosts. Invited, the illuminated hall is thronged with quiet, inoffensive ghosts, as silent as the pictures on the wall. The stranger at my fireside cannot see the forms I see, nor hear the sounds I hear. But he perceives what is, while unto me all that has been is visible and clear. We have no title deeds to house or lands, owners and occupants of earlier dates. From graves forgotten stretch their dusty hands, and hold in Mortmain still their old estates. The spirit world around this world of sense floats like an atmosphere, and everywhere wafts through these earthly mists and vapors dense a vital breath of more ethereal air. Our little lives are kept in equipoise by opposite attractions and desires. The struggle of the instinct that enjoys and the more noble instinct that aspires. These perturbations, this perpetual jar of earthly wants and aspirations high, come from the influence of an unseen star, an undiscovered planet in our sky. And as the moon from some dark gate of cloud throws o'er the sea a floating bridge of light, across whose trembling planks our fancies crowd into the realm of mystery and night. So from the world of spirits there descends a bridge of light, connecting it with this, o'er whose unsteady floor that sways and bends, wander our thoughts above the dark abyss. Excuse me. I got something stuck in my throat there. That last stanza was a bit rough. I wonder if I'm actually getting sick again. I didn't get enough sleep last night, so maybe I am. Anyway, I will soldier on for now. See how long my voice lasts. Yes, I'm sure you know that better than most. Welcome back, very talented wolf. I'm doing well, how are you? The next poem is called In the Churchyard at Cambridge. In the village churchyard she lies. Dust is in her beautiful eyes. No more she breathes, nor feels, nor stirs. At her feet and at her head lies a slave to attend the dead. But their dust is as white as hers. Was she a lady of high degree, so much in love with the vanity and foolish pomp of this world of ours? Or was it Christian charity and lowliness and humility, the richest and rarest of all dowers? Who shall tell us? No one speaks. No color shoots into those cheeks, either of anger or of pride at the rude question we have asked. Nor will the mystery be unmasked by those who are sleeping at her side. Hereafter, and do you think to look on the terrible pages of that book, to find her failings, faults, and errors? You will then have other cares, in your own shortcomings and despairs, in your secret sins and terrors. That was In the Churchyard at Cambridge by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. I'm going to take a very quick break, 2 minutes, to see if I can get my voice fixed. Oh, that sounds like fun. I have not played Stranded Deep. Oh, wait. Where are my manners? There we go. Please follow Talentless Blonde, for she is not at all talentless. She's a wonderful ASMR streamer. She also has a gaming channel where she plays not very comfy games. Sometimes comfy games, like Tetris. Okay, very quick, 2 minutes. I will be right back. All right. Next up we have The Emperor's Bird's Nest. This is a long one. Once the Emperor Charles of Spain, with his swarthy grave commanders, I forget in what campaign, long besieged in mud and rain some old frontier town of Flanders. Up and down the dreary camp, in great boots of Spanish leather, striding with a measured tramp, these hidalgos dull and damp, cursed the Frenchmen, cursed the weather. Thus, as to and fro they went, over upland and through hollow, giving their impatience vent, perched upon the emperor's tent. In her nest they spied a swallow. Yes, it was a swallow's nest, built of clay and hair of horses, mane or tail or dragoon's crest, found on hedgerows east and west, after skirmish of the forces. Then an old hidalgo said, as he twirled his gray mustachio, "Sure this swallow overhead thinks the emperor's tent a shed, and the emperor but a macho." Hearing his imperial name coupled with those words of malice, half in anger, half in shame, forth the great campaigner came, slowly from his canvas palace. "Let no hand the bird molest," said he solemnly, "nor hurt her." Adding then, by way of jest, Golondrina is my guest. 'Tis the wife of some deserter. Swift as bowstring speeds a shaft, through the camp was spread the rumor, and the soldiers as they quaffed Flemish beer at dinner laughed at the emperor's pleasant humor. So unharmed and unafraid sat the swallow still and brooded, till the constant cannonade through the walls a breach had made, and the siege was just thus concluded. Then the army elsewhere bent, struck its tents as if disbanding, only not the emperor's tent, for he ordered ere he went, very curtly, leave it standing. So it stood there, all alone, loosely flapping, torn and tattered, till the brood was fledged and flown, singing o'er those walls of stone which the cannon shot had shattered. Hello, Rage. Welcome back. How are you doing today? So, that was a poem called The Emperor's Bird's Nest by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Wait, did that shout out work or not? I don't actually see it. Let's do it again. Oh, I guess it worked because I have to wait another hour before giving another shout out. Okay, next up we have a poem called The Two Angels. It's another long one, so I'll take a moment to prepare my voice. The two angels. Two angels, one of life and one of death, passed o'er our village as the morning broke. The dawn was on their faces, and beneath, the somber houses hearsed with plumes of smoke. Their attitude and aspect were the same, alike their features and their robes of white. But one was crowned with amaranth, as with flame. One was with asphodels like flakes of light. I saw them pause on their celestial way. Then said I, with deep fear and doubt oppressed, beat not so loud, my heart, lest thou betray the place where thy beloved are at rest. And he who wore the crown of asphodels, descending at my door, began to knock. And my soul sank within me as in wells the waters sink before an earthquake shock. I recognized the nameless agony, the terror and the tremor and the pain that oft before had filled or haunted me, and now returned with threefold strength again. The door I opened to my heavenly guest, and listened, for I thought I heard God's voice, and knowing whatsoe'er he sent was best, dared neither to lament nor to rejoice. Then with a smile that filled the house with light, "My errand is not death, but life," he said. And ere I answered, passing out of sight, on his celestial embassy he sped. "'Twas at thy door, old friend, and not at mine, the angel with the amaranthine wreath, pausing, descended, and with voice divine, whispered a word that had a sound like death. Then fell upon the house a sudden gloom, a shadow on those features fair and thin, and softly from that hushed and darkened room, two angels issued, where but one went in. All is of God if he but wave his hand. The mists collect, the rain falls thick and loud, till with a smile of light on sea and land, lo, he looks back from the departing cloud. Angels of life and death alike are his. Without his leave they pass no threshold o'er. Who then would wish or dare, believing this, against his messengers to shut the door? That was The Two Angels by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Next up, we have a poem called Daylight and Moonlight. In broad daylight and at noon yesterday, I saw the moon sailing high, but faint and white as a schoolboy's paper kite. In broad daylight yesterday I read a poet's mystic lay, and it seemed to me, at most, as a phantom or a ghost. But at length the feverish day, like a passion, died away, and the night, serene and still, fell on village, vale, and hill. And the moon, in all her pride, like a spirit glorified, filled and overflowed the night with revelations of her light. And the poet's song again passed like music through my brain. Night interpreted to me all its grace and mystery. Next up is the Jewish cemetery at Newport. This looks like a somewhat dangerous poem to read on stream. But I'll risk it. with the reminder that I'm not reading Longfellow's poems because I agree with his philosophy or religion or ideas. How strange it seems, these Hebrews in their graves, close by the street of this fair seaport town, silent beside the never-silent waves, at rest in all this moving up and down. The trees are white with dust that o'er their sleep wave their broad curtains in the south wind's breath, while underneath such leafy tents they keep the long, mysterious exodus of death. And these sepulchral stones, so old and brown, that pave with level flags their burial place, seem like the tablets of the law thrown down and broken by Moses at the mountain's base. The very names recorded here are strange, of foreign accent and of different climes. Alvarez and Rivera interchange with Abraham and Jacob of old times. Blessed be God, for he created death, the mourners said, and death is rest and peace. Then added, in the certainty of faith, and giveth life that never more shall cease. Closed are the portals of their synagogue. No psalms of David now the silence break. No rabbi reads the ancient Decalogue. In the grand dialect, the prophets spake. Gone are the living, but the dead remain, and not neglected, for a hand unseen, scattering its bounty like a summer rain, still keeps their graves and their remembrance green. How came they here? What burst of Christian hate, what persecution merciless and blind, drove o'er the sea, that desert desolate, these Ishmaels and Hagars of mankind? They lived in narrow streets and lanes obscure, ghetto and Judenstrasse, in murk and mire, taught in the school of patience to endure the life of anguish and the death of fire. All their lives long, with the unleavened bread and bitter herbs of exile and its fears, the wasting famine of the heart they fed, and slaked its thirst with Mara of their tears. Anathema Marantha was the cry that rang from town to town, from street to street. At every gate the accursed Mordecai was mocked and jeered and spurned by Christian feet. Pride and humiliation hand in hand walked with them through the world where'er they went. Trampled and beaten were they as the sand, and yet unshaken as the continent. For in the background figures vague and vast of patriarchs and of prophets rose sublime, and all the great traditions of the past they saw reflected in the coming time. And thus, forever, with reverted look, the mystic volume of the world they read, spelling it backward like a Hebrew book, till life became a legend of the dead. But what once has been shall be no more. The groaning earth, in travail and in pain, brings forth its races but does not restore, and the dead nations never rise again. Hello, Crabsworth. Welcome to the stream. Welcome to the Ridsley Bears. I'm glad to have you here. My throat is really not cooperating today. I may have to end stream soon. Anyway, Crabsworth, I hope you enjoy your stay here. We're reading poetry by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. And if my voice behaves, maybe we'll read one more poem. Maybe more. Let's see. Okay, I think it might hold up a little while longer. So, let's give it a shot. Yeah, it is true. Streaming sometimes takes its toll, but I don't think it's the streaming that's doing the damage today. I think it's not getting enough sleep last night when I'm just getting over a cold, so I think maybe the cold is coming back a bit. But I will get to bed early tonight, and that'll do the trick. And then I have the house all to myself this weekend, so I'm going to stream every day from today until Sunday, assuming my voice is doing okay. Thank you, Blondie. Do you mind if I call you Blondie? That seems a little cheeky. Lay, right, I've seen people call you Lay. Alrighty, the next poem is called Oliver Basselin. This is one of his poems about some obscure historical figure. He really likes to write these, usually poets, which seems to be the case here. So, I don't know Oliver Basselin, but I guess he was a poet. And one thing Longfellow loves to write poems about is poets and poetry. Okay, here we go. In the valley of the Vire, still is seen an ancient mill, with its gables quaint and queer, and beneath the window sill, on the stone, these words alone: Oliver Basselin lived here. Far above it, on the steep, ruined stands the old chateau. Nothing but the donjon keep left for shelter or for show. Its vacant eyes stare at the skies, stare at the valley green and deep. Once a convent old and brown, looked, but it looks no more. From the neighboring hillside down on the rushing and the roar of the stream whose sunny gleam cheers the little Norman town. In that darksome mill of stone, to the water's dash and din, careless, humble, and unknown, sang the poet Basilin. Songs that fill that ancient mill with a splendor of its own. Never feeling of unrest broke the pleasant dream he dreamed, only made to be his nest. All the lovely valley seemed, no desire of soaring higher stirred or fluttered in his breast. True, his songs were not divine, were not songs of that high art, which as the winds do in the pine find an answer in each heart. But the mirth of this green earth laughed and reveled in his line. From the alehouse and the inn, opening on the narrow street, came the loud, convivial din, singing and applause of feet. The laughing lays that in those days sang the poet Basilin. In the castle, cased in steel, knights who fought at Agincourt watched and waited spur on heel. But the poet sang for sport, songs that rang another clang, songs that lowlier hearts could feel. In the convent, clad in gray, sat the monks in lonely cells, paced the cloisters, knelt to pray, and the poet heard their bells. But his rhymes found other chimes, nearer to the earth than they. Gone are all the barons bold, gone are all the knights and squires, gone the abbot, stern and cold, and the brotherhood of friars. Not a name remains to fame from those moldering days of old. But the poet's memory here of the landscape makes a part. Like the river, swift and clear, flows his song through many a heart, haunting still that ancient mill in the valley of the Vallier. Alrighty, that was a poem called Oliver Basilin by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Okay, I'm hoping for a second wind here on my voice. I think I might get it. So we're going to soldier on and read the next poem, which is another poem about another historical figure, Victor Galbraith. Another obscure historical figure that I know nothing about. But let's read a poem about him anyway. Under the walls of Monterey, at daybreak the bugles began to play Victor Galbraith. In the mist of the morning, damp and gray, these were the words they seemed to say. Come forth to thy death, Victor Galbraith. Forth he came with a martial tread. Firm was his step, erect his head. Victor Galbraith, he who so well the bugle played, could not mistake the words it said. Come forth to thy death, Victor Galbraith. He looked at the earth, he looked at the sky, he looked at the files of musketry, Victor Galbraith. And he said, with a steady voice and eye, take good aim, I am ready to die. Thus challenges death, Victor Galbraith. 12 fiery tongues flashed straight and red. 6 leaden balls on their urn sped. Victor Galbraith falls to the ground, but he is not dead. His name was not stamped on those balls of lead. And they only scathe Victor Galbraith. These balls are in his breast and brain, but he rises out of the dust again, Victor Galbraith. The water he drinks has a bloody stain. Oh, kill me and put me out of my pain. In his agony prayeth Victor Galbraith. Forth dart once more those tongues of flame, and the burglar has died a death of shame, Victor Galbraith. His soul has gone back to whence it came, and no one answers to that name, when the sergeant saith, Victor Galbraith. Under the walls of Monterey, by night a bugle is heard to play Victor Galbraith. Through the mist of the valley, damp and gray, the sentinels hear the sound and say, that is the wraith of Victor Galbraith. I guess that poem might mean more to me if I knew who Victor Galbraith was. Next up, a poem called My Lost Youth. This is a long one, so I think I will drink the last of my water before I tackle it. Oh goodness, it is quite long already. My lost youth. Often I think of the beautiful town that is seated by the sea. Often in thought go up and down the pleasant streets of that dear old town, and my youth comes back to me. And a verse of a Lapland song is haunting my memory still. A boy's will is the wind's will, and the thoughts of youth are long, long thoughts. I can see the shadowy lines of its trees, and catch in sudden gleams the sheen of its far surrounding seas, and islands that were the Hesperides of all my boyish dreams. And the burden of that old song, it murmurs and whispers still, a boy's will is the wind's will, and the thoughts of youth are long, long thoughts. I remember the black wharves and the slips, and the sea tides tossing free, and the Spanish sailors with bearded lips, and the beauty and mystery of the ships, and the magic of the sea. And the voice of that wayward song is singing and saying still, a boy's will is the wind's will, and the thoughts of youth are long, long thoughts. I remember the bulwarks by the shore and the fort upon the hill, the sunrise gun with its hollow roar, the drumbeat repeated o'er and o'er, and the bugle wild and shrill, and the music of that old song throbs in my memory still. A boy's will is the wind's will, and the thoughts of youth are long, long thoughts. I remember the sea fight far away, how it thundered o'er the tide, and the dead captains as they lay in their graves o'erlooking the tranquil bay, where they in battle died. And the sound of that mournful song goes through me with a thrill. A boy's will is the wind's will, and the thoughts of youth are long, long thoughts. I can see the breezy dome of groves, the shadows of Deering's woods, and the friendships old and the early loves come back with a Sabbath sound as of doves in quiet neighborhoods, and the verse of that sweet old song, it flutters and murmurs still. A boy's will is the wind's will, and the thoughts of youth are long, long thoughts. I remember the gleams and glooms that dart across the schoolboy's brain, the song and the silence in the heart, that in part are prophecies and in part are longings wild and vain. And the voice of that fitful song sings on and is never still. A boy's will is the wind's will, and the thoughts of youth are long, long thoughts. There are things of which I may not speak. There are dreams that cannot die. There are thoughts that make the strong heart weak, and bring a pallor into the cheek, and a mist before the eye. And the words of that fatal song come over me like a chill. A boy's will is the wind's will, and the thoughts of youth are long, long thoughts. Strange to me now are the forms I meet when I visit the dear old town. But the native air is pure and sweet, and the trees that o'ershadow each well-known street, as they balance up and down, are singing the beautiful song, are sighing and whispering still. A boy's will is the wind's will, and the thoughts of youth are long, long thoughts. And Deering's woods are fresh and fair, and with joy that is almost pain, my heart goes back to wander there, and among the dreams of the days that were, I find my lost youth again. And the strange and beautiful song, the groves are repeating it still. A boy's will is the wind's will, and the thoughts of youth are long, long thoughts. Well, that very long poem was called My Lost Youth by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Longfellow is for sure the wordiest poet I've read on stream so far. He really liked to write. I am, on that subject, roughly 1/3 of the way through this book of Wadsworth poems. Longfellow's poems, I should say. I feel like it's been 5 streams, 6 streams maybe, and only 1/3 of the way through. It's going to be quite an adventure. Okay. Another quick break to clear my throat before the next poem, which is also a long poem. Okay, this poem. Oh, hello. Shinka? How do I pronounce your name? What does the X say in your name? Shinka? Maybe. Anyway, welcome to the stream. Welcome to the Grizzly Bears. I hope you enjoy your stay here. And if you like honey, I suspect you will. Papa Bear is also a honey enjoyer, as it happens. So, welcome in, fellow honey enjoyer. This poem is called The Rope Walk. In that building, long and low, with its windows all a row, like the portholes of a hulk, human spiders spin and spin, backward down their threads so thin, dropping each a hempen bulk. At the end, an open door, squares of sunshine on the floor, light the long and dusky lane, and the whirring of a wheel, dull and drowsy, makes me feel all its spokes are in my brain. As the spinners to the end downward go and reascend, gleam the long threads in the sun, while within this brain of mine cobwebs brighter and more fine by the busy wheel are spun. 2 fair maidens in a swing like white doves upon the wing. First before my vision pass, laughing as their gentle hands closely clasp the twisted strands at their shadow on the grass. Then a booth of mountebanks, with its smell of tan and planks, and a girl poised high in air, on a cord and spangled dress, with a faded loveliness and a weary look of care. Then a homestead among farms, and a woman with bare arms drawing water from a well. As the bucket mounts apace, with it mounts her own fair face, as at some magician's spell. Then an old man in a tower, ringing loud the noontide hour, while the rope coils round and round, like a serpent at his feet, and again, in swift retreat, nearly lifts him from the ground. Then within a prison yard, faces fixed and stern and hard, laughter and indecent mirth. Ah, it is the gallows tree, breath of Christian charity, blow and sweep it from the earth. Then a schoolboy with his kite, gleaming in a sky of light, and an eager upward look. Steeds pursued through lane and field, fowlers with their snares concealed, and an angler by a brook. Ships rejoicing in the breeze, wrecks that float o'er unknown seas, anchors dragged through faithless sand, sea fog drifting overhead, and with lessening line and lead, sailors fleeing for the land. All these scenes do I behold, these and many left untold, in that building long and low, while the wheel goes round and round with a drowsy dreamy sound, and the spinners backward go. That was kind of a neat poem, I think. It was called The Rope Walk by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. The next poem is called The Golden Milestone. It's another long one. And I think maybe after this one I will have to take a break to refill my water. But then I think I can come back. Leafless are the trees, their purple branches spread themselves abroad like reefs of coral, rising silent in the red sea of the winter sunset. From the 100 chimneys of the village, like the Ifrit in the Arabian story, smoky columns tower aloft into the air of amber. At the window winks the flickering firelight. Here and there the lamps of evening glimmer, social watchfires answering one another through the darkness. On the hearth, the lighted logs are glowing, and like Ariel in the cloven pine tree for its freedom, groans and sighs the air imprisoned in them. By the fireside, there are old men seated, seeking ruined cities in the ashes, asking sadly of the past what it can ne'er restore them. By the fireside, there are youthful dreamers, building castles fair with stately stairways, asking blindly of the future what it cannot give them. By the fireside, tragedies are acted, in whose scenes appear two actors only, wife and husband, and above them God, the sole spectator. By the fireside, there are peace and comfort, wives and children with fair, thoughtful faces, waiting, watching for a well-known footstep in the passage. Each man's chimney is his golden milestone, is the central point from which he measures every distance through the gateways of the world around him. In his farthest wanderings still he sees it, hears the talking flame, the answering night wind, as he heard them when he sat with those who were, but are not. Happy he whom neither wealth nor fashion, nor the march of the encroaching city drives in exile from the hearth of his ancestral homestead. We may build more splendid habitations, fill our rooms with paintings and with sculptures, but we cannot buy with gold the old associations. I have to say I didn't like that one so much. It was called The Golden Milestone by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. And now is time for me to take a 3 or 4 minute break just to get some water. I will be right back. Okay, here I am, water refilled, voice somewhat refreshed, ready to keep going for a while. Where were we? We are reading poems by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. And the next poem is called Catawba Wine. This looks kind of fun. This song of mine is a song of the vine, to be sung by the glowing embers of wayside inns when the rain begins to darken the drear Novembers. It is not a song of the scuppernong from warm Carolinian valleys, nor the Isabel and the muscadel that bask in our garden alleys, nor the red mustang whose clusters hang o'er the waves of the Colorado, and the fiery flood of whose purple blood has a dash of Spanish bravado. For the richest and the best is the wine of the West, that grows by the beautiful river, whose sweet perfume fills all the room with a benison on the giver. And as hollow trees are the haunts of bees, forever going and coming, so this crystal hive is still alive, with a swarming and buzzing and humming. Very good in its way is the Verzenay, or the Sillery soft and creamy. But Catawba wine has a taste more divine, more dulcet, delicious, and dreamy. There grows no vine by the haunted Rhine, by Danube or Guadalquivir, nor on island or cape that bears such a grape as grows by the beautiful river. Drugged is their juice for foreign use, when shipped o'er the reeling Atlantic, to rack our brains with the fever pains that have driven the old world frantic. To the sewers and sinks with all such drinks, and after them tumble the mixer, for a poison malign is such Borgia wine, or at best but a devil's elixir. While pure as a spring is the wine I sing, and to praise it one needs but name it, for Catawba wine has no need of sign, nor tavern bush to proclaim it. And this song of the vine, this greeting of mine, the winds and the birds shall deliver to the Queen of the West, in her garlands dressed, on the banks of the beautiful river. I wonder if that poem was perhaps sponsored by the Catawba Wine Association. Certainly seems like might be product placement. Anyway, it was a fun poem. The next one is called Santa Filomena. Whene'er a noble deed is wrought, whene'er is spoken a noble thought, our hearts in glad surprise to higher levels rise. A tidal wave of deeper souls into our inmost being rolls, and lifts us unawares out of all meaner cares. Honor to those whose words or deeds thus help us in our daily needs, and by their overflow raise us from what is low. Thus thought I, as by night I read of the great army of the dead, the trenches cold and damp, the starved and frozen camp, the wounded from the battle plain, in dreary hospitals of pain, the cheerless corridors, the cold and stony floors. Lo, in that house of misery, a lady with a lamp I see, pass through the glimmering gloom, and flit from room to room. And slow as in a dream of bliss, the speechless sufferer turns to kiss her shadow as it falls upon the darkening walls. As if a door in heaven should be opened and then closed suddenly, the vision came and went. The light shone and was spent. On England's annals and through the long hereafter of her speech and song, the light its rays shall cast from portals of the past. A lady with a lamp shall stand in the great history of the land, a noble type of good, heroic womanhood. Nor even shall be wanting here the palm, the lily, and the spear, the symbols that of yore Saint Philomena bore. I feel like I need to work on my triggers. I need more. Or I don't know, maybe I just need more poems. Conveniently, Longfellow provided me with what seems like a never-ending list of poems to read. Really quite impressive output. The next one is called The Discoverer of the North Cape, a leaf from King Alfred's Orosius. Oh, there the old sea captain who dwelt in Heligoland, to King Alfred, the lover of truth, brought a snow-white walrus tooth, which he held in his brown right hand. His figure was tall and stately, like a boy's his eye appeared. His hair was yellow as hay, but the threads of a silvery gray gleamed in his tawny beard. Hardy and hale was Othere, his cheek had the color of oak. With a kind of laugh in his speech, like the sea tide on a beach, as unto the king he spoke. And Alfred, king of the Saxons, had a book upon his knees, and wrote down the wondrous tale of him who was first to sail into the Arctic seas. So far I live to the northward, no man lives north of me. To the east are wild mountain chains, and beyond them meres and plains. To the westward, all is sea. So far I live to the northward. From the harbor of Scaringe's hail, if you only sailed by day, with a fair wind all the way, more than a month would you sail. I own 600 reindeer, with sheep and swine beside. I have tribute from the Finns, whalebone and reindeer skins, and ropes of walrus hide. I plowed the land with horses, but my heart was ill at ease, for the old sea-fearing man came to me now and then with their sagas of the seas, of Iceland and of Greenland, and the stormy Hebrides, and the undiscovered deep I could not eat or sleep for thinking of those seas. To the northward stretched the desert, how far I fain would know. So at last I sallied forth, and 3 days sailed due north, as far as the whale ships go. To the west of me was the ocean, to the right the desolate shore. But I did not slacken sail for the walrus or the whale, till after 3 days more. The days grew longer and longer, till they became as one. And southward through the haze I saw the sullen blaze of the red midnight sun. And then uprose before me upon the water's edge the huge and haggard shape of that unknown North Cape, whose form is like a wedge. The sea was rough and stormy, the tempest howled and wailed, and the sea fog like a ghost haunted that dreary coast. But onward still I sailed. 4 days I steered to eastward, 4 days without a night. Round in a fiery ring went the great sun, O King, with red and lurid light. Here Alfred, king of the Saxons, ceased writing for a while, and raised his eyes from his book with a strange and puzzled look, and an incredulous smile. But Othir, the old sea captain, he neither paused nor stirred, till the king listened, and then once more took up his pen, and wrote down every word. And now the land, said Othir, bent southward suddenly, and I followed the curving shore, and ever southward bore into a nameless sea. And there we hunted the walrus, the narwhale, and the seal. Ha, 'twas a noble game, and like the lightning's flame flew our harpoons of steel. There were 6 of us altogether, Norsemen of Helgoland. In 2 days, and no more, we killed of them 70, and dragged them to the strand. Here, Alfred the truth-teller suddenly closed his book, and lifted his blue eyes, with doubt and strange surmise depicted in their look. And Othir, the old sea captain, stared at him, wild and weird, then smiled till his shining teeth gleamed white from underneath his tawny, quivering beard. And to the king of the Saxons, in witness of the truth, raising his noble head, he stretched his brown hand and said, "Behold this walrus tooth." That was the discoverer of the North Cape, a leaf from King Alfred's Orosius. Kind of a fun poem, I guess. It reminds me, with the talk of the king of the Saxons, that I've been wanting to read Beowulf on stream, but not any of the modern translations of Beowulf. I think I'd like to read Beowulf in Old English. But to do that, I need to learn to read Old English because it's like a different language. But I think that would be very fun. Okay. The next poem is refreshingly short. It's called Daybreak. A wind came up out of the sea and said, "O mists, make room for me." It hailed the ships and cried, "Sail on, ye mariners, the night is gone," and hurried landward far away, crying, "Awake, it is the day." It said unto the forest, "Shout, hang all your leafy banners out." It touched the woodbird's folded wing and said, "O bird, awake and sing." And o'er the farms, O Chanticleer, your clarion blow, the day is near. It whispered to the fields of corn, "Bow down and hail the coming morn." It shouted through the belfry tower, "Awake, O bell, proclaim the hour." It crossed the churchyard with a sigh and said, "Not yet, in quiet lie." That was Daybreak. Okay. I seem to be doing kind of okay. My voice isn't getting any worse anyway. So, I'll keep going. The next poem is called The 50th Birthday of Agassiz, May 28th, 1857. That's a good reminder about how old these poems are that we're reading. Most of these poems, all of these poems, I think, were written before the American Civil War, before the First World War. It was a different world. It was 50 years ago, in the pleasant month of May, in the beautiful Pays de Vaud, a child in its cradle lay. And Nature, the old nurse, took the child upon her knee, saying, "Here is a storybook thy father has written for thee. Come wander with me," she said, into regions yet untrod, and read what is still unread in the manuscripts of God. And he wandered away and away with nature, the dear old nurse, who sang to him night and day the rhymes of the universe. And whenever the way seemed long, or his heart began to fail, she would sing a more wonderful song, or tell a more marvelous tale. So she keeps him still a child, and will not let him go, though at times his heart beats wild from the beautiful Pays de Vaud. Though at times he hears in his dreams the Ranz des Vaches of old, and the rush of mountain streams from glaciers clear and cold. And the mother at home says, "Hark, for his voice I listen and yearn. It is growing late and dark, and my boy does not return." That was the 50th birthday of Agassiz. The next poem is called Children. Come to me, O ye children, for I hear you at your play, and the questions that perplexed me have vanished quite away. Ye open the eastern windows that look towards the sun, where thoughts are singing swallows, and the brooks of morning run. In your hearts are the birds and the sunshine. In your thoughts the brooklets flow. But in mine is the wind of autumn, and the first fall of the snow. Ah, what would the world be to us if the children were no more? We should dread the desert behind us, worse than the dark before. What the leaves are to the forest, with light and air for food, ere their sweet and tender juices have been hardened into wood. That to the world are children. Through them it feels the glow of a brighter and sunnier climate than reaches the trunks below. Come to me, O ye children, and whisper in my ear what the birds and the winds are singing in your sunny atmosphere. For what are all our contrivings and the wisdom of our books when compared with your caresses and the gladness of your looks? Ye are better than all the ballads that ever were sung or said, for ye are living poems, and all the rest are dead. That was a poem simply called Children by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Okay, next up we have a poem called Sandalphon. Have you read in the Talmud of old, in the legends the rabbins have told, of the limitless realms of the air? Have you read it, the marvelous story of Sandalphon, the angel of glory? Sandalphon, the angel of prayer. How, erect at the outermost gates of the celestial city he awaits, with his feet on the ladder of light, that crowded with angels unnumbered, by Jacob was seen as he slumbered, alone in the desert at night. The angels of wind and of fire chant only one hymn and expire, with the song's irresistible stress. Expire in their rapture and wonder, as harp strings are broken asunder. By music they throb to express. But serene in the rapturous throng, unmoved by the rush of the song, with eyes unimpassioned and slow, among the dead angels, the deathless Sandalphon stands listening breathless to sounds that ascend from below. From the spirits on earth that adore, from the souls that entreat and implore, in the fervor and passion of prayer, from the hearts that are broken with losses, and weary with dragging the crosses too heavy for mortals to bear. And he gathers the prayers as he stands, and they change into flowers in his hands, into garlands of purple and red, and beneath the great arch of the portal, through the streets of the city immortal, is wafted the fragrance they shed. It is but a legend, I know, a fable, a phantom, a show of the ancient rabbinical lore. Yet the old medieval tradition, the beautiful, strange superstition, but haunts me and holds me the more. When I look from my window at night, and the welkin above is all white, all throbbing and panting with stars. Among them, majestic is standing, Sandalphon the angel expanding his pinions in nebulous bars. And the legend, I feel, is a part of the hunger and thirst of the heart, the frenzy and fire of the brain that grasps at the fruitage of forbidden, the golden pomegranates of Eden, to quiet its fever and pain. That was Sandalphon by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. I kind of liked that one, but I didn't read it very well. I think I shall have to come back to that one again and try to do better. At the moment, I'm wondering how much longer my voice is going to hold up. I'm surprised I've gotten this far. 2 hours of poetry reading so far. Given that my voice was almost immediately bothering me as soon as I started. Seems like maybe it's even gotten a little bit better over the course of the stream. But still, I think I won't last that much longer. The next poem is called The Children's Hour. Between the dark and the daylight, when the night is beginning to lower, comes a pause in the day's occupations that is known as the children's hour. I hear in the chamber above me the patter of little feet, and the sound of a door that is opened and voices soft and sweet. From my study I see in the lamplight, descending the broad hall stair, grave Alice and laughing Allegra, and Edith with golden hair. A whisper and then a silence, yet I know by their merry eyes they are plotting and planning together to take me by surprise. A sudden rush from the stairway, a sudden raid from the hall. By 3 doors left unguarded, they enter my castle wall. They climb up into my turret, or the arms and back of my chair. If I try to escape, they surround me. They seem to be everywhere. They almost devour me with kisses, their arms about me entwine, till I think of the Bishop of Bingen in his mouse tower on the Rhine. Do you think, O blue-eyed banditti, because you have scaled the wall, such an old mustache as I am is not a match for you all? I have you fast in my fortress, and I will not let you depart, but put you down into the dungeon, in the round tower of my heart. And there will I keep you forever, yes, forever and a day, till the walls shall crumble to ruin, and boulder and dust away. That was The Children's Hour by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. And I feel like I didn't read that one very well either. So maybe I need a break. So I think we will make that our last poem for this stream. But, as I mentioned before, I have the house to myself this weekend. So I'm going to stream every day, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Should be fun. thank you, Lay, for hanging out with me this entire time, if I'm not mistaken. I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope it brought you relaxation. And I hope to see you again here or in your stream. Thank you, you too. So enjoy the rest of your evening.